Now, I wonder whether you knew this. Today, the 5th of October, is Global James Bond Day. 57 years after the first ever Bond film, that was Dr. No, hit the cinemas in London. And to mark the annual celebration, the official poster for the new Bond film, No Time to Die, has now been released. Well, joining me now in the studio is Bond author and pop culture pundit Mark O'Connell. Welcome to you, Mark. What is the point of this Global James Bond Day?
I know, it's almost like why we're here. We don't have Captain America Day. We sometimes have Batman Day, but I think it's a mark of the legacy of Bond. I mean, we're about to go into the seventh decade of Bond movies, and it's a sort of these very divisive times we live in. I think it's a good thing that we've got something to fall back on that's familiar and entertainment.
We need some escapism.
The world needs a real James Bond, but I think it might need a Bond movie a little bit more, actually, right now.
And you're talking there about it being this enduring franchise. I mean, just talk to us about, why it has had such broad appeal and how it's had to sort of shift in its approach over the decades.
Well, these films, I mean, yes, 6 decades of going to the cinema, but also I think these films become part of British family traditions as well, whether it's watching Boxing Day or Bank Holiday Bond movies with your dad, or nans taking their kids, grandkids to Leicester Square to see a Bond film. I think it's become sort of part of the cultural tapestry and also the cultural expectation as well.
And how have they had to change? Because decades ago you had a very sort of alpha male macho James Bond, didn't you? And you had women who were a lot more submissive, and that power dynamic has shifted a little, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they always had strong women in Bond films. They might have been slightly less clothed in earlier days and decades, but they've always been strong women, so I'll defend it by that. Yes. But they do move with the times, and the films move with the times, whether it's Bourne or in the 70s they embraced the Kung Fu and even the Star Wars era. I think they're very good at... Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, the producers, are very good at working out where are we now, where are the threats, but also then trying to go 5-10 minutes beyond that as well and ahead of it. So they might be slightly ahead of some curves in the new film.
The other thing about them is they're not just really popular here, they're popular around the world, aren't they? Is it how the world views the British, do you think? Yeah, it's a good one. I don't know. It's sort of DB5s and suits. When you go abroad... Old world sort of charm.
Yeah, those sort of mahogany doors and M's desk. Yeah, it is part of that British culture. I mean, you can align it to that sort of Downton Abbey view of Britain that's very sort of cultural and English. But I think Bond does have a global appeal because the films are shot in multiple locations. They move around the world. They cast different actors from different regions. So I think they're aware of... And, they need to appeal to just... not just to British audiences.
Now, talk to us about the new one that's coming out. I think it's next April.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of articles in the press about... There's been a bit of a bumpy road.
The press have really had some knives out, but I always think it's a testament to how popular and fascinating for the public that Bond could be. But I think there's a really interesting director, Kerry Fukunaga. He's done very interesting work. He's the first sort of 80s kid that's taking over the franchise. He's done very punchy, sometimes brutal, but you need that for Bond. And then you've got Phoebe Waller-Bridge co-writing.
Yeah, now that's intriguing, isn't it?
That's a really good move.
Have they had female co-writers before?
First two Bond films were co-written by a woman, so there has been a bit of can't have a woman go near Bond. But actually, yes, you can, because they've always been produced and co-created by a lot of women. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge, that's going to be a good move. She's a very punchy economic writer, and I think she's going to bring that to this film.
And from what you're saying about that director, he will take some risks.
Yes, I mean, there's feeling that he's already released some footage that feels very punchy and contemporary in Jamaica. It feels very contemporary. Perhaps the Sam Mendes Bond films were deliberately placed in a slightly, like you said, English, bespoke, mahogany DB5 world. But here, I think we might take Bond out of some of his comfort zones, although the DB5 and 3 other Aston Martins are along for the ride.
And as somebody who's immersed himself in Bond, who's your favourite? Who's played him best?
I always say the best should be who we've got now, so that's Daniel Craig. But I always...
That's a cop-out, isn't it?
No, it is a cop-out. Of course, it's my media answer, but I love Roger Moore.
I'm asking you for Roger Moore.
Absolutely.
I'm with you on that.
He was the one I broke out of that egg, and he was the first Bond I saw, and that was it. And then the rest were just, I call them my step-Bonds. They were just sort of came along afterwards.
Well, I think the thing that Roger Moore did is that he played the humorous side very well, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah, I saw Moonraker, one of his 70s films, on the big screen last weekend, and it was amazing just to see a new print of it. But but also just to see the command Roger Moore had on the screen, because he wasn't just aping it and mocking it. He was a proper British film star. I think that he carried that series through from sort of 73 to 85, which were very different box office times. And I think the reason we have Bond films now is because of what Roger Moore did for it.
And in your view, who should be the next Bond? I mean, if not a person, what type of person? Should it be a woman?
I would possibly have no problem with that. I'm sure some fans would freak out. It will not be a woman, because that's not where the role is created, and that's not where the beats of the character are. But there's a lot of good actors out there. I always think it'll be someone none of us have thought, yes, absolutely.
So not Idris Elba, you think?
Idris Elba, I would think, would be a great Bond. I'd possibly, not that he's that old, but maybe his window of time has slightly passed him. But it'd be great. Why not?
Yeah, OK, well, we'll see, won't we? All right. Very good to talk to you, Mark O'Connell. Thanks for coming in.